Hey guys, I'd really appreciate a like, a comment immediately on this video, and a share if you can do it. You know, the usual small creator needs the algorithm to love him, so yeah, I'd really appreciate it guys, and I love you so much. Let's get on with the stories. I'm a native of Hammond, which is very close to Maryville. I've been to Reeder Road many times, and actually know a different story of the road. The ones I saw on your site are new to me. My parents told me the story long ago, and although I've not experienced it for myself, I know others who claim to have. This may be more of a local story, but who knows? It's still something I'd like to share. Back in the 1950s, the road was often used by teens and young adults as a private makeout place. The story goes that a young lady and her boyfriend made a stop at the road. While they were parked, they heard a thumping on top of the car. They ignored it for a bit, but the girl started to become creeped out as the noise grew louder. The boyfriend decided he would get out and investigate. When he got out, the thumping stopped. After several minutes, the boyfriend had not returned, and the thumping started again. The girl panicked and got out of the car. She found her boyfriend bloodied and hung from a tree, and the thumping she was hearing was the sound of her boyfriend's feet hitting the top of the car as he hung there dead. Supposedly on warm summer nights, if you pull off into the road and park for a bit, you will hear the thumping, and if you get out to investigate, the thumping will stop, and you will find a letterman's jacket hanging from the tree above you. There is also an abandoned school out in Cedar Lake, where Hammond Baptist used to attend. The story goes that the pastor went crazy and removed some of the little ones from this world, if you know what I mean. I've personally have experienced strange happenings in the school, such as children's voices, windows that were shut on the way in open as we walked back out. Supposedly it's supposed to be the little ones trying to escape. From what I understand, a few years ago, part of the building caught fire inexplicably. I haven't been there in about 5 years. However, if you would like some directions to the place, it's a little tricky to get to, and I would be happy to share them with you if you are interested. Like I said, this is a story passed on to me by my parents, and others I know also know the story and claim to have witnessed it. I'm also aware of the satanic gatherings in the field, down the trail in the woods, usually occurring during the 2 equinoxes every year. This may explain some of the animal parts we found. Also, in this field, I've seen glowing orbs here and there, but never thought much of them since they were out far in the field. But you may be able to look into this more than I can. Oh, and the girl that jumped into the river and drowned, she is also part of this story, in Hammond, of course. She can be seen on Halloween night on Klein Avenue, hitchhiking to get to her wedding. Supposedly if you pick her up, she thanks you for the ride, and then disappears into the night. My name is Gemma. I went to a primary school in a small village where I lived for a year or two. Then we had to move into a town nearby. It wasn't too far away from my friends, so sometimes I would catch the bus there. One day, I went up to see my friend Holly. She told me that my old deputy head teacher had just died. I don't know how old he was, but apparently he got murdered. That night, Holly asked me to stay at her house for the night, so I did. We were only about 10 at the time. Her parents were downstairs, and her 2 little brothers were both asleep. We were the only people awake upstairs. Holly went downstairs to get something to eat for me and her, and left me alone. I decided to play a trick on her. I turned all the lights off and hid under her bed in her room. I looked around. I was really scared, so I looked up and saw two eyes looking at me. They were glowing. At that point, I closed my eyes, thinking it was just my imagination. When I opened my eyes, they were still there. I stayed under the bed because I didn't want to move. Then, I heard Holly coming up the stairs. The eyes backed away into the darkness, and I backed away and hid again. When Holly came into the room, I jumped out and scared her. I told her about the eyes, and she believed me. Then she said, "Let's take a look inside the wardrobe." So we both opened it slowly and took a look inside. Funny enough, nothing was in there except for her clothes and stuff. So we both decided that it was me seeing things because it was dark. Later that night, Holly turned the lights off, and we both went to sleep. I couldn't get to sleep, and I kept on looking over at the wardrobe. I laid there with my eyes open, when suddenly I saw the eyes again, looking over at me. I slid under my covers. When I looked out, they had gone, but I could feel something in the room. I knew something was there. Suddenly, a black figure appeared in front of me. It laid down, and then I saw the eyes. It was staring right at me. I screamed, which woke Holly up, and she suddenly backed away against the wall. We could both see the black figure on the floor. Then it seemed to sink into the ground and disappear. We both went downstairs and stayed there for a couple of hours. We talked about the figure for ages. Then I said it reminded me of something. Holly said that as well, before we both realized that it looked like Mr. Baker. Why would he haunt us though? We'll never know. When I was younger, I had quite a few paranormal experiences, as did my mom. The most direct contact either of us had with spirits was with her father. He died at home and lived with us when I was about 4. My mom was very close to him, and I was pretty close to him too for being so young. After he died, my mom would often be house cleaning and walk into his room where his old recliner sat and smell his unique scent, cigarette smoke mixed with cologne and whatnot. She never saw or heard him, but she would know he was there and would talk to him for a while. When I was 6, we moved out of the house he died in and into the house where my mom still lives. I never had the type of encounters my mom had with them, but I was lucky enough to see him once. First, I need to explain the setup of our house. The front and back doors are directly parallel to each other, and both have glass panes in them. The front door opens into the dining room, and you can walk straight through to the kitchen, and then to the back door. You can look from the front porch all the way into the backyard through the glass in these doors. When I was about 7, I was standing in the kitchen, looking out the window of the back door, and I could see the reflection of the front door in the glass. Suddenly, I saw my grandfather walk by the front door in the reflection, as though he was walking across the front porch. He smiled and waved at me. The whole thing only lasted a split second, but he was very deliberately contacting me. I believe he chose to do it in such an indirect way, so as to not frighten me. Maybe he was saying goodbye, since I was too young to understand when he actually died. What's really strange, though, is that I described him to my mom as looking younger than he did when he died. And when she showed me some pictures of him in his 40s, I told her that that's exactly how he appeared to me. She thinks he must have been happiest during that time of his life, and so chose to appear that way. I think it was a couple years after that when my mom had her final encounter with him. She was house cleaning again, when she smelled his familiar odor. She was in a hurry, and she told him, "I'm sorry, Dad. I can't really talk right now," and left the room. When she came back in, the scent was gone, and she just knew that was the last time she would hear from him. She feels guilty that she didn't stop to talk to him, but I think she just realized that she was ready to move on, and that's why he didn't contact her again. We do believe that he stuck around for a while after that, because he would often lose a piece of jewelry or something small, only to have it turn up right under our noses a few days later. I've had other experiences unrelated to my grandfather, but his was the only human spirit I ever actually saw. Not long after we moved into the new home, I had several experiences with feline spirits. I once saw the hind legs and tail of a cat disappearing into, not up, the top of the stairs from the landing. I know it could have been our own cat, because it was pure white, and our two cats were black. Another time, I was sitting at the kitchen table when I felt a cat rubbing against my legs. I reached down to pet it, but nothing was there, and when I looked under the table, there was no cat to be found. There were also a few incidents in my mom's house where electronics would do seemingly things on their own. The TV turned itself off at least twice that I can remember. Perhaps the weirdest instance was when I was in my bedroom listening to my stereo. It has one of those LED screens that flashes at things as music plays, and when you turn the volume knob, these bars show up on the screen that move up or down as you change the volume. I was listening to music one day, and I had my back to the stereo. When I realized the volume was getting lower, I turned around, and the volume display came up on the screen, and the bars were going down like the knob was being turned. I turned the volume back up, and nothing else happened after that. This has gotten long, but I only have one more experience to share. At another sleepover with my best friend, we decided to leave a tape recorder with a blank tape in an empty room while we hung out in the living room and record whatever there was to hear. No one went in the room while I was recording, and the door was shut. When we played it back, we could very faintly hear ourselves in the living room for most of the tape, and nothing else. There was one spot on the tape where a high-pitched voice spoke in a loud, raspy whisper. It was obviously neither of us, because you could hear us in the background very softly behind it. We weren't sure what it said, but it sounded like "shine a light." It didn't make any sense, but it did creep us out. That was the only unexplained voice on the tape, which unfortunately, I no longer have. That was the last experience I had that I'm certain had no physical explanation. This is a story about ghosts that I think is worth sharing. It's a little bizarre and not very detailed, but I think it would capture your interest. When I was young, I always heard ghost stories revolving around these red coat ghosts. These were entities that would often appear in our house. The home I lived in used to house British soldiers from Napoleon's time, so essentially the late 1700s. I remember one particular incident. It was late at night, and that's when I started to hear strange noises in my room. At first I brushed them off, not thinking anything of it, because you can always explain these incidents away as nothing more than just normal noises. Then, I started to hear noises which were very peculiar. I would hear faded whispers, like a group of people whispering when I would open my door to investigate the sound. It wasn't anything loud, and didn't last for too long. Of course, I ended up going down that staircase to find a root cause of these whispers. What I saw next was actually quite interesting to me. Not scary, although a bit unbelievable. After going downstairs and into the living room, I saw two redcoat soldiers for a second, just standing side by side as they quickly faded from the living room. They also had a foggy and faded quality to them to begin with, where you could barely tell a figure was there with the red colors. I'll never forget that moment the rest of my life. Growing up in Lakeland, Florida, my parents purchased a repossessed mobile home. One of the bedroom doors had a deadbolt lock, but face of the child in the room could not get out. My elder sister had this room and reported a small girl about the age of 5 or 6 that would appear in a white nightgown carrying a teddy bear. She would sit at the end of my sister's bed and just cry. In the closet of the bedroom in the same home, there were stickers and drawings on the wall where it appeared someone was punished and made to sit in the closet. There were also fingernail scratches on the wall in the same closet. In the third children's room of the same home, there was brown carpeting with a lime green shape on the floor that was the same shape of a clothes iron. If an iron fell onto carpeting while it was hot, doesn't it make sense it would just burn the carpet hair instead of change the color to green? My aunt even had to come remove a spirit once that was following my little sister all the way to school and hiding behind things when she turned around to see who was following her. My little sister said it resembled a Grim Reaper type of shadow. In the same home, items would mysteriously be moved to another area. Things would then come up missing, then all of a sudden reappear one day. I truly believe that we are not living alone on this earth, and that spirits live among us. There are a lot of theories as to why this is, but to me, I believe that ghosts and spirits are almost other living forms trapped in another dimension. Even if we have loved ones who have passed and appeared to us, to me, it's like they are leaving this realm of existence to enter another one, and they behave much like we all do, often unaware of the world they just left. I believe that the ones that chose to bridge the gap between our world and theirs are messengers chosen by God to give us confirmation that we as human beings will not lose purpose once we have left this earth, and that our souls do live on. Even if you aren't a religious type, I do believe that if ghosts exist, then God must exist in some form. Otherwise, how do these souls still live on? And what power is allowing them to exist in the other universe? Anyway, my ghost experience comes at the time I was staying at my grandmother's. It was night, and I was 11 years old. I was watching TV in the living room when I heard what sounded like my grandfather, who was a heavy-set man, but tall, make his way through the home. Noticeable footsteps, as if he were wearing boots, and they were walking across the hardwood floor. At the time, I immediately recognized it was probably my deceased grandpa, So I yelled out to Grandpa Bunky, "Please stop scaring me." I was hoping I would get confirmation of him leaving me alone, because I'm a very anxious person, and even though I'm in tune with spirits, sometimes I just don't want to deal with it. I don't think my grandpa honestly meant any harm by it, but I think he felt that he wasn't getting enough attention, if that makes sense, and wanted his presence to really be known that day. He was always known as a loud, boisterous person in life, the kind of man that had to be the center of attention. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I could have swore I saw the shadow of my grandfather materialize. As soon as I got up to turn directly to where he was gone and faded. So I rushed downstairs to where my grandma was. I really wanted to make sure that nobody else was upstairs, so I just asked Grandma if she was just up the stairs in the hall. She emphatically said no, and asked me why I was so concerned. I told her that I saw Grandpa, and she said that Grandpa is gone, and that while you may miss him, we have to accept this. She didn't believe in the afterlife. Funny thing was, about a year before this all happened, my great uncle died of a disease in his lungs and kidneys. This was the exact same disease that my grandpa had died from. While that's not unusual, my older sister told me she witnessed the exact same thing that happened to me. One night, when I was at a friend's house sleeping over, she was about 17 at the time. So, I'm not entirely sure if it was my grandpa or great uncle exactly, but I still think my grandpa was the one to visit because he knew me better than my great uncle did. I also think that it had to be my grandpa because maybe he wanted my grandma to believe, but since she's closed off to this world because of her views, he was frustrated. Maybe he gave her signs, and she ignored them. Are frustrated ghosts a thing? Anyway, hope you enjoyed my story. I have a crazy story to tell. I live in New Orleans. That's of course located in Louisiana, the Deep South. One night, me and my girlfriend were at home, and I'm guessing it was around 5:30 in the morning. I'm assuming, because that's when I got up to go to work, and I always sit by the window and wait for my ride. This morning was a bit unusual and different. I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, I felt this overwhelming chill brush past me, like an undeniable cold air. I asked my girlfriend if she was cold, and she said no. I don't know what it was, but something told me to tell her to sit in my chair to see if she felt what I was describing. It was a lingering cold that didn't go away, and told me she could feel the cold chill as well. It gave us both goosebumps, and within a few moments, the coldness quickly disappeared. The crazy part is, I think the chair is haunted. It was given to me as a present from generations in the family. I'm talking an early 1900s style rocking chair. I remember one of my uncles wanted to just sell it off eBay to get rid of it, because he didn't want anything to do with it. So I ended up taking it off his hands because of the family history. The most interesting part of this chair is, a lot of my family members have claimed to see a black figure in that chair rocking back and forth on numerous occasions. At times, it would be seen rocking on its own without anything being seen. I still have yet to witness anything like this, but ironically, a friend staying over our house actually did. It was later that night, and my girlfriend and I were in a separate room. Suddenly, My friend screams for us to come in because he just saw the rocking chair move on its own without any force. He didn't even know about the history of that chair and our family, so that made it even more terrifying, but intriguing in a way. My dad had stayed in our house once, and he said looking out the window, there's a tree outside our home, and late at night, he saw a faded man in overalls walk behind the tree and suddenly disappear. Again, none of these things have personally happened to me, but they seem to be happening to my family and friends. None of them are capable of lying. I don't see why anyone would anyway, since we're all older, mature adults, and we have no business lying for attention or any purpose really. Now, just because I said I didn't experience anything, besides the coldness in the chair, it doesn't mean my girlfriend hasn't. She told me one day when she was out on the front porch, where you could see the tree. It was evening. It was getting pretty dark, but not so dark you couldn't see anything. She too thought she saw a very dark shadow move around the tree and then disappear. She said it was the weirdest thing because it was like a fog, and you could easily see the contrast between the tree and this mysterious fog. I don't know if you've seen these type of videos before on YouTube where they show this type of stuff, but she said it was very similar to that. She's also seen the blinds from the window where the chair is positioned move from time to time without any explanation. Knocks on the walls, and sometimes her name is whispered into her ear. Again, these are her experiences, so I can't tell you if it's real based on what she said. But again, my girlfriend wouldn't lie to me for no reason. As you know, New Orleans is a city with lots of history dating back hundreds of years, and with our old home, there's bound to be some entity, especially with the haunted chair. Do you believe in this? Because honestly, as crazy it may seem, I do, even without having these experiences for my own to share. As an open-minded person, I'm not just going to hate on someone just because they have a ghost story to tell. I'll be open-minded. I'll consider their credibility and other things. If all those aspects of their personality check out, then yes, I'll have to believe them. This world is fascinating. It has a lot of mystery. I will not just ignore the spirit world. I just wish that I could experience it too, just once, what everyone else has as well. I used to live in the Theta Chi fraternity house as a brother. There were stories talking about the house had a fire in the attic and whole sorts of supernatural and paranormal happenings. I can confirm the fire in the attic was true, and strange things did happen too. Some even reported glowing eyes in the dark of the attic. However, one of the most common had to do with the lights. We had sensors installed to cut back on the brothers leaving the lights on. These sensors only react to the movement. These lights would go on and off all the time when nobody would be in the room. We would be several rooms away, far enough from the sensors that we wouldn't set them off, and they would suddenly go on and off. Also, there were times when we would be sleeping, and we would wake up to what sounded like a large social gathering downstairs. Several of us would go down there, thinking it was a group of brothers coming home from the bar, only to find the entire house empty, and no one would be around. Also, I used to work at Have a Nice Day Cafe, and the upstairs was indeed haunted. I would have to go up there every night to take down a banner that was thrown over the exterior of the building. To do this, I would have to go to the roof via the upstairs. It is full of rooms, completely empty. There was this long hallway that stretched the length of the building. There was only one light that sat at the end of the hallway. As you walked down the hall, you would get the feeling that you were being watched. Several bouncers have claimed to see a man up there. Apparently, before it was Have a Nice Day Cafe, it was called Industry, and one night, a barback intentionally left the world upstairs, using a broken beer bottle, and when the bouncers would make their rounds before closing, they would have to go up there to make sure no one snuck up there. When they would flash their flashlights into the room in which the sad incident took place, the man ghost was seen crying and bleeding. He would get up and run towards you, as if asking for help. Many bouncers quit after they experienced it. I guess you could say they bounced after they saw that ghost. This is a true story of our family's experience at Theodore's Bridge in Wichita, Kansas. I grew up in Sagewitch, Kansas, a small town just north of the bridge's location. Since my family is American Indian, we always respected the legend and tales of the bridge. On May 12th, 1983, my own mother was killed in a car wreck within feet of the old bridge. The police couldn't explain what caused her to swerve sharply to the left. However, they agree that something must have been in the road right in front of her. What's odd is that no animal tracks were ever found, and it wasn't another car. I was young at the time, and awoke around midnight with a horrible dream. It had to do with being grossly removed from this life. Someone had chopped my head off with an axe. Later that morning, around 4:45 a.m., I was awakened again by someone pounding on my door. It was the police looking for me. Turns out, they found my driver's license in my mom's car. Thinking it was me who died, they came to inform my parents only to find me standing in the doorway. Several years later, I was helping my dad go through some papers and found my mom's death certificate. Only then did I find out that Mom was thrown through the windshield with her head coming right off. Throughout the years, as family members and friends have drove by, the sight strange things have happened to them. Their cars would quit working for just a few moments, or they see things, like my mom standing there, looking at them and smiling. If anyone would like to email me, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about all the strange things I've occasionally seen. My name is Catherine. After the experiences me and my family have had, I know we have a ghost. It all started when I was 7. I couldn't get to sleep. I looked down from my bunk bed for a moment or two and saw, in my bedroom closet, which had no door, what seemed to be a little girl sitting in there, staring at me. She wore a white dress and was underneath either a white blanket or a duvet cover. Once me, my mom and my sister were watching a film in the dark, and suddenly, on the shelf, my picture was slammed down. One time my sister had said that she had seen the ghost. One night when we had our normal beds, she saw her walk from the closet to the end of the bed and just staring at her. Then she flew through the wall. The second time I saw her was when I was out in the kitchen. I saw her out the window, in the shadow window, smiling, but there would be 2 faces beside her this time. The scariest experience I've ever encountered was when I was watching TV. I was sitting down on one of the seats when I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. I got scared and turned off the TV to ask who was there. Then the door creaked open. Then there was a noise in the other seat, like someone was sitting down on it. I was so scared that I couldn't even move. Nothing else happened since then, but I know our house is haunted for sure. The girl just won't go away. Hi, my name is Kim. I'm 18 years old, and I have a few experiences I would like to share with you. Every summer, I used to go to my Nana's farm and help out. The last time I went was a few years ago. That was when I was 14, and something creepy happened that I've since tried to forget. I think it's about time I shared it with you all. It was a boiling hot July afternoon, and I was helping to clean out one of the barns. My Nana went on and on for about an hour, complaining that it was too hot for her liking, but I decided to stay to try and finish. About 10 minutes after my Nana left, I began to hear tiny pitter-patter of the feet in the hayloft. Thinking that it was just mice or something, I got on with my work. I began sweeping when I heard laughter and two voices, one of a boy and the other of a girl, talking in hushed whispers. I peered up the stairs, feeling slightly scared, and called again, but nobody replied. As I turned to get back to my work, the voice of the girl called up here. I was quite spooked. Nobody should be up here, but yet, there I was, hearing a voice. Sometimes, though, the other kids in the village muck around, so maybe I thought it was one of them. "Hey, you're not allowed up there," I shouted as I walked up the stairs. As I got up to the hayloft, I looked up to see two black shadows with hooks through their necks, almost hanging for a split second. This faded quickly. I completely freaked out and ran screaming to my Nana's house. My Nana later told me that two little people had died in that barn when they were playing around. My mom came to pick me up the next day, and as we drove away, I looked back at the barn and saw two little faces staring right back at me from the hayloft window. Needless to say, I never went back. In 1998, I had a ghost experience. My first, and I hope my last. I was living in the second floor of a college dormitory. My colleague that lived directly under me would ask me on occasion if I was moving furniture late in the night and early morning, between 12 midnight and 2 a.m. Absolutely not. I can recall that I moved my bed once in the middle of the day when I first moved in at the beginning of the semester. I thought maybe it was a ghost because it was common knowledge that our dormitory was an old TB hospital. The entire campus was located on an old military hospital site. Our cafeteria was where the morgue was, back in the Great First Conflict, or the Great Second Conflict. I never heard anything in my room. Then, early one Saturday morning, I got up and made myself coffee and left the dormitory on the second floor and headed down the old iron stairs. I made my way across the tennis courts to make a phone call. I could see my dormitory from where I stood. I dialed the number and was talking to a friend steadily watching the stairs to my dorm. That is, when I saw a smoky black figure flailing its arms around and staring straight at me. Then it went back into the locked closed doors of the second floor dorm. They lock behind each person that leaves, so I reported it to staff. That is when I started to hear many ghost stories from the Knights Guardsmen that patrolled the cafeteria and hallways. There are many dorm buildings on campus. Anyhow, I put it behind me and continued my life. Shortly after my brother died, due to a long illness, I returned to college, but got my own apartment and shared it with a friend. It would get so cold in there. Heat turned on all the way up, and the fireplace on, yet it was 70 degrees outside. I was still grieving, so I withdrew from college and took my truck on a long drive across the country. In Nebraska while at a rest stop, my entire truck swarmed with flies. I'm very clean, and so was my truck. I was eating, but still swarms of flies. I threw my food away and drove crying and screaming, trying to get them out of my truck. I stopped to wash my truck, then got a motel and shower. I returned 6 months later to my old apartment to ask around to see if the new renters had any problem. The lady that opened the door was really nice and said that she had to hire someone from another state to come and clear the ghost. She said that it was so bad that the person they hired had to have a partner come and help. She mentioned the freezing cold room temperatures, the feelings that someone was following her up the stairs, like I had. They said they do a certain ceremony and burn certain herbs to clear away the spirit, because she did minor ghost clearing work, but it was too much for her. She said that the people she hired said that the bowl they used to burn herbs caught fire. The flames reached the ceiling. It was the worst ghost cleansing they had to do in a long time. Then the lady did a ceremony over me, and the feeling that something hanging on my back just went away. Actually, I felt whatever it was kind of crawl up and out of me and move my spine involuntarily. I've never had a problem since. Wait, please, did you like the video or comment? It'll help the algorithm. Okay, I'll give you $1 and maybe a holler if you do it. Okay, I'm not rich, so I'm gonna go. Bye, I love you guys. Oh yeah, and share. Not like the musician share or a chair, but share. Okay, I gotta go for real now. Bye.